Virginity. What is it? And what's the big deal about losing it? Let me cut to the chase. Virginity is a completely made-up concept. It's a term that was created simply to control and shame people, mainly women. A virgin is someone who's never had sex, but it's not as simple as it seems. For one thing, medically, virginity isn't a real thing. In some cultures, people place a lot of importance on the hymen, a thin, fleshy tissue located at the opening of your vagina, as a marker of virginity. But the status of your hymen doesn't actually mean anything. That's because having penis and vagina sex is not the only way a hymen can stretch open. It can happen by putting something in your vagina like a tampon or a finger, riding a bike, or doing sports. So you can't tell if someone's had sex by the way their hymen looks or feels. There is also a double standard on who carries the burden of virginity. Society puts pressure on men for not having sex at the exact same time they shame women for having it. Make it make sense. Either way, shame has no place in someone's personal decisions about sex. It's time to throw away the notion of losing your virginity. What if instead of losing something, we reframe it as gaining? Because the truth is, when we make our own decision to become sexually active, we aren't setting ourselves up to lose anything at all. We hope we are gaining things like intimacy, self-insight, pleasure, and empowerment. All of these myths around sex and virginity can be so hurtful and overwhelming. But here's the one truth you should remember. Sex is defined by one thing and one thing only: you. Maybe that's being fingered for the first time. Maybe it's having sex. Maybe it's having your first orgasm. Maybe it's masturbating for the first time, or when you enthusiastically consent to sex. That's the beauty of your sexual journey. You're in charge, and you can figure it out on your own terms. Choosing to have sex, when, what kind, where, who with, is something that only you get to define.
Here's the real reason why Planned Parenthood or Unplanned Parenthood is trying to inception young girls to lose their virginity when they're younger, poorer, and less insured, is because they're the #1 provider of abortion. And no, this isn't a preachy video about abortion. I'm just calling out the play as I see it. That was a classroom, a high school classroom. If more of them are taking the stigma out of virginity and having sex earlier, that means more of them are getting pregnant. That means that more of them will be needing an abortion. That means Planned Parenthood could justify their need for more government funding. This was a cut you with a knife to sell you a bandage video. And they turned the comments off on that video for good reason. But the stock answer that they get when they get caught on this is they tried to point out that abortions make up 3% of the services that they provide. And they used to get me with that one. I actually thought that meant something. And then I started thinking, everything that you do is a service. You know, if you hand out 97 condoms for every 3 abortions, you can say that abortions are 3% of the services that you provide. The fact of the matter is, they put up nearly 400,000 abortions per year. That's north of 40%. They're closing in on half in the country. So no matter how you slice it, abortion is their big ticket item. You can see how the number of patients drop down, but the funding goes up and the abortions go up. And yes, it is true that they get money from other places. Roughly a third of it comes from private funding. I mean, if you just take the amount of them that they do per year times the cost of abortion, you can see how much of big business it is for them. Now, make no mistakes, those boring, cringy, grainy sex ed PSA videos that they used to have us watch back in school.
First of all, what does the term AIDS stand for?
This is a more updated version. Like, they made this ultimately to replace one of those. The end goal of this video is for it to be in classrooms at school. And I could respect Planned Parenthood if they made a video like this about pregnancy prevention or STDs, I could understand where they're coming from if it's an informative video warning you of the dangers. I understand that. But this is not that. This is an attempt to embolden, or what's that word that they used? Empower them to go out and do it sooner, often, or as she said,
You're in charge, and you can figure it out on your own terms that only you get to define.
how is this even their lane? Morality aside, their lane should be providing whatever care they need to provide if somebody messes up. I don't understand how they can do that with a straight face. They're practically looking in the camera and telling you, I'm a treatment center for diabetes, but I also own a chain of fried chicken restaurants. And look who they roll out, no pun intended, to come and deliver this message. The person who's of the demographic who's their number one customer. And they somehow manage to do this with a straight face.